I work with people across all sorts of industries and at all levels, from undergraduates all the way up to like knighted barristers. I have noticed that there is a certain trend to a lot of the clients I work with. They're generally very smart, successful, sometimes professional services, so lawyers, management consultants for sure, because I guess that's my background in law. My brain works in a similar way. I'm very analytical. So yeah, I suppose they feel a resonance with me and my pathway. But I do also work with, all sorts of people, whether in the kind of, I've worked with like occupational therapists. I've worked with people in sales and creatives. And that's the way I like it. I love that variety. To be honest, I don't really have a niche beyond, I like to think of myself as quite an expert in career change and career development. And even though the people are different in terms of their careers that I work with and their varied personalities, I've also noticed that people are people, right? We often have the same points, the same fears, the same challenges. So the outer wrapper might be different, but often the same themes pop up. And I'm dealing with the same themes just to different degrees with different clients.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Nguyen, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, and even $100,000 weeks. Before Purple Circle, I've grown several 7- and 8-figure career coaching businesses myself, and have been a consultant at 2 career coaching businesses that are doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets Podcast. I'm Pedro, and today's guest is Melanie Pritchard, a lawyer turned life and career coach who helps individuals and organizations peak perform both personally and professionally. Drawing on her background in law, psychology studies at Oxford, counseling, and NLP, she supports clients in areas ranging from career transitions and leadership development to mindset mastery and life design. Melanie also works with companies through corporate success masterclasses focused on resilience, emotional intelligence, and workplace well-being. Her clients include organizations like the NHS, Network Rail, and the Natural History Museum. And her work has been featured in outlets such as the Financial Times, Marie Claire, and Women's Health. Welcome to the show, Melanie.
Thank you very much, Pedro. That was a wonderful overview.
From the day we met, and I always like to rewind a bit, get back to the origin story, because every coach has that moment where they look at their life and say, yeah, I guess this is what I'm doing now. Right? So when was that for you?
Well, we can rewind to a Sunday in London, sitting outside a law firm I was working at for the nth time at the weekend, thinking, not again, not again. I'm sick of working at weekends. So that's when I had the realization that I wanted to get out of, I guess, the high pressure world of family law, in my case, to move in a different direction with greater work-life balance. The next sort of ding, ding, ding soulmate realization moment came atop a double-decker red bus, reading an article about coaching. And it was one of those moments that we have when we meet a soulmate and we think, this is it. I thought, this sounds great. It's using similar skills to being a family lawyer, helping people through big life changes, the vulnerability and fear that comes with that. That's what drew me to family law. But I thought, hey, I can use those skills and my passion for people and supporting people in a different, more entrepreneurial context with much greater balance, really, and freedom. So in a nutshell, that was it.
Okay. Now, I always ask this, and I want to know, it's because that feeling of when did it shift, from I'm helping people, this is a calling, to, you know what? I'm building a real business around this. That first invoice, that, when you start getting paid and you're like, I think this is about it. When did that shift happen for you, Melanie?
That's an excellent question, Pedro, because you can feel a bit like a fraud in the beginning before you're a proper entrepreneur. So initially I was doing a lot of freelance work for a market leader in London, a career coaching company. And that really built my skills and my experience and my confidence. But I guess I felt a little bit of an imposter being a freelancer. So the shift actually happened. And this is an inspiring reminder for people going through redundancy or other crises. The shift happened when that company went into liquidation. She was brilliant at coaching and marketing, but maybe the money management side was a bit trickier. So when she liquidated the company, it gave me a lot more time to focus on growing my business and essentially leveraging everything that her organization had taught me, how to monetize coaching packages, how to do brilliant discovery calls to convert clients, and how to leverage the skills I'd learned in coaching to actually grow my business. So I'd say that was the sort of moment the switch kind of flipped a little bit. And I really felt I've really got my own gig here now. I'm ready to go.
Okay. And after you got rolling, right? Who are the people that kept showing up for your business? The ones you realize, okay, this is my tribe, because at the early days in coaching, there's a lot of testing the waters, a lot of I'm trying to help everyone. So were you eventually able to niche down or how that played out for you?
Yeah, I mean, to be horribly rebellious, Pedro, I hate being put in boxes and I love variety. I'm a bit of a GP, if you like, in the career and life coaching world. So I work with people across all sorts of industries and at all levels, from undergraduates all the way up to like knighted barristers. I have noticed that there is a certain trend to a lot of the clients I work with. They're generally very smart, successful, sometimes professional services, so lawyers, management consultants for sure, because I guess that's my background in law. My brain works in a similar way. I'm very analytical. So yeah, I suppose they feel a resonance with me and my pathway. But I do also work with, all sorts of people, whether in the kind of, I've worked with like occupational therapists, I've worked with people in sales and creatives. And that's the way I like it. I love that variety. To be honest, I don't really have a niche beyond, I like to think of myself as quite an expert in career change and career development. And even though the people are different in terms of their careers that I work with and their varied personalities, I've also noticed that people are people, right? We often have the same points, the same fears, the same challenges. So the outer wrapper might be different, but often the same themes pop up. And I'm dealing with the same themes just to different degrees with different clients.
Interesting. Yeah, and I like to, dive into the marketing bit because you have that variety, right? The variety that you mentioned, you're helping like a lot of people out there and different kinds of people. So how do they usually find you? And how do they get to you in the first place? Just so I can understand.
Yeah, good question. To be honest, it's all been quite holistic, which has been rather nice. So I've never really had a particular strategy so far. I'm probably at the point where I'm thinking about that more now. I've always been quite active on social media. So writing is a real passion of mine. I did an English degree. I love writing. I'm quite a creative person. So I've always been quite active on Instagram and LinkedIn. I generally write when I feel inspired by something in life or inspired by my clients. And I'll write sort of like short posts or articles on that. I've also sort of shared quite a lot of, I suppose, short videos on Instagram and LinkedIn over the years. And I think videos are helpful because if I was selling like welly boots, I'm selling a product, but I am the product, if you like. So people need to feel a connection with me, the kind of service provider. So I think videos are really powerful ways to express your energy and allow others to feel that connection if there is that fit. So I found that to be quite fruitful. The other way that I've indirectly marketed is really just by focusing, Pedro, on doing a really good job with clients. So just making sure I'm giving them the best possible service, supporting them throughout the process. And then, if they're finding that their lives are really positively impacted by me, which they should be, they'll obviously speak highly of me because those near them are seeing really positive change and transformation. In other words, referrals have been quite a big part of my success. Yeah, I would say.
Okay, so let's picture this. I was referred to you, right? I watched your videos and all that. I resonated and with your content, I created a connection just like you said. And I want to know what working with you looks like, right? So imagine I'm being onboarded, right? We went through the discovery call. I just want to understand, like, structure wise, how would that look like from my perspective as a client to work with Melanie?
Do you want to know about structure and style or just the structure?
Whatever feels like people that would love to work with you could use the exposure just to understand what would look like to work with you.
Okay. Yeah, great. Well, firstly, I think having an energetic match connecting with me is really important. So I guess the jumper I'm wearing captures my personality quite a lot. I'm quite a vibrant, dynamic, fun person. So although my clients come to coaching in various states of stress, often very stressed, we have a lot of fun, right? So what I do coaching, it's very deep and soulful and quite existential. And there's a holding space for that depth, but I bring quite a lot of lightness and fun to the process. So it's not all super heavy. So that's the first thing. That's my style, sort of dynamic, fun, interactive, and quite light touch, but very deep and sort of pseudo-therapeutic as well. So I have that kind of duality. In terms of the structure and things, I have a very structured program, which I learned from this big market leader I worked for. It's 3 parts. Really, the most important thing for clients to realize is you need to get really clear on who you are and what you need to be happy before you can even consider, for example, career change. So we sort of dive deeply into exploring clients' frameworks for happiness and success. So like their values, their interests and passions, their strengths and superpowers, any higher purpose. And because you need to get super clear on those things, those existential foundational points before you can even explore other careers successfully. And often, obviously, people are confused because they haven't got clear on those foundations. So that's part one of the 3-part structure. And I found that structure really helps clients to feel a sense of safety and growth at a time of flux. The other thing that's probably different about me, Pedro, compared to maybe some coaches, so obviously traditional coaching is asking clients questions to help them connect to their truer selves so that change can effectively take place. But I do also offer an aspect of mentoring. And so giving them guidance and advice based off of my varied commercial experience and exposure to a wide range of industries. But I'm very careful about when I bring to bear that mentoring. I hate playing God. So if I hear a theme pop up and I'll ask a client, would you like my thoughts on that based on my experiences? And invariably they'll say yes. I also offer mentoring around sort of mindset mastery. So I've learned a lot from my background in sort of mental health as well, in terms of really powerful but very practical 5-minute mindset mastery hacks. So it's not just like we're swimming around in difficult emotions. We'll explore that, we'll connect with it, and then I'll give them really helpful structured tools to help them basically reframe negative thoughts that are keeping them entrenched and stuck. And clients seem to find that very helpful because you can explore options, you can explore new avenues, but unless you've dealt with the mind and overcome limiting beliefs, essentially, it's quite hard to effect change. So I'd say those are some of the aspects of my coaching that are perhaps a little bit different to some other coaches, maybe.
Interesting. I mean, your work seems pretty hands-on, right? So how do you think, and this is like a tricky question because I see coaches sometimes wearing all the hats, right? So how do you think about capacity? So don't stretch yourself too thin, you know?
In what sense, Pedro, when you said, how do you think about capacity?
Well, it's like I've seen coaches, like I mentioned, they're wearing all the hats. Sometimes I've seen people like advocating about burning out, right? The
Yeah.
coaches specifically. Hey, don't burn out. I'm going to help you. And sometimes I've seen coaches, I'm not saying this is the case, but it's like I've seen coaches in the space, like working 10-hour plus, getting a lot of clients. They're like doing the follow-ups. They're the marketing expert. They're,
Yeah.
they're doing everything, the coaching, the business development side. So how do you think about that in a way that you don't get yourself pinned down or you get yourself trapped like that? Just so we can potentially deliver some value for our audience there.
Well, firstly, full and frank, I guess there's an assumption there that I've nailed it. It's a work in progress, right? Probably for anyone who runs a business, because as you said, what people don't realize, I want to be a coach. It sounds so fun. Work from home, design your day. Yeah, but you got to know how to market and sell. And that's not an overnight thing. So in other words, I do burn out sometimes. I've got better at managing that and connecting with my values to ensure that I am finding enough balance within my own world. But it can be hard, is the honest answer. I'm not going to sit here and be like, yeah, I've got it all sorted, Pedro, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. And even though I find coaching in many ways quite easy, it comes very naturally to me. It's a deep expression of self. You're bringing deep presence, and it's an expression of soul and a lot of things I've been through, which clients won't realize, which help me to really help them transform. Sometimes I'm surprised when I feel burnt out because I'm like, I don't get it. I find this work really easy. Like, why am I burnt out? And then I realize it's because I'm doing so much active listening as well as writing and selling in a way. It sometimes doesn't feel that way because it's sort of quite heart-led work to me. And I've had quite a holistic approach to marketing and selling. But there's still a mental load of I need to bring in X number of clients and I need to be growing my business and making sure that I'm always developing. A couple of things I find helpful is routine. So, going to the gym is very important to me. Obviously, having a way to sort of, express that stress. And I find always reading and learning is very stabilizing for me because it helps me to add value to clients when I'm gaining knowledge myself. And it also gives me a sense of being ahead of the curve and sort of being the best I can be versus like competitors who have maybe done coaching but aren't committed enough to their own growth to really add value to clients, maybe. And I regularly, engage with social media because again, that's how I've sort of so far sold and marketed myself. And I regularly focus on, just really doing a good job for clients. So I always give 200% in sessions, in follow-ups. I sort of go above and beyond. That's something my Google reviews say a lot. So that's my way of, trying to balance between getting that repeated client flow and staying in balance myself.
Right. Yeah, I love the honesty because at the end of the day, I see a lot of coaches joining the space, the coaching space, and they're like, what? I need to market, I need to get a CRM, and they're in for the coaching aspect, right? Most of them. and not necessarily for the business side. So,
Right.
and sometimes
Yeah.
they get caught up, right? So it's cool that you're so open about it, because I think most coaches are in the same spot, right? They're still figuring out how to do it and how they can market themselves in a way that's not, salesy or tactic, like sounds tactic, or it's like just being aligned with who you are and what you represent. Now, Melanie, I feel like I need to ask you something because this is such a hot topic, and we don't, and it's pricing, right? But we don't need to talk about hard numbers. My question is more about the mindset behind it, especially in the early days, right? Because this is such a self-worth path. Am I charging enough? Am I not charging enough? Because at the end of the day, sometimes, and I'm a coach myself too, you see the calendar, right? And it's like, oh, I could have like X, Y, and Z clients if I, drop my rates. And that's that scarcity mentality behind it. So that's something that I see every coach wrestling with at some point. So my question to you is, how do you think about it today? And were there any lessons along the way that shaped how you landed where you are right now?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Pedro. Yeah. Again, I suppose I was lucky working for this market leader because it gave me a sense in a way of what people will invest if they're ready to commit. So she charged quite a lot more than I charge now, but you see all sorts of clients, not just wealthy clients, but people who didn't really have the money investing, whether it was going into debt or otherwise. So that was good to see. That being said, I haven't reached the stage in my business where I'm like, I'll charge what she was charging because her machine was really established and quite slick. And I guess one of the reasons potentially why the business was liquidated is because she was investing so much in Google ads and costly marketing overheads that while there was always a steady flow of clients behind the scenes, there was probably too much investment in that. So what I've done really is the way that I've worked with money, and my prices haven't really changed that much, to be honest, Pedro, over the years. Is I hit on a figure that's sort of the minimum that I would need not to resent my clients for the Mel perks they're getting, the rich commercial background, the huge amount I've invested in courses and training, and the transformational impact I can see I have on my clients from their Google reviews. So I pick out a number that I think sufficiently reflects that, doesn't make me feel resentful towards what they're getting, but also a number that most people from different backgrounds can afford. So I basically offer an early bird price if they sign up, which is a bit cheaper than a kind of installment option, which is a little bit more. And that way, I think it meets the needs of both parties, because it can be quite hard to also know what people can afford. I do work with a lot of my clients are quite wealthy by all intents and purposes. Often they're on six figures. But what I've realized, Pedro, I'm sure you have too, is income and net income are different. So they might be on six figures, but they might have children in private schools and a massive mortgage and be in that kind of corporate cage with lots of liabilities. So their net income might not be as high as you might assume from their job title. And also you might get someone who frankly is really rich, but it doesn't have any idea what coaching is, and that X number is a drop in the ocean for the huge benefits and changes they'll see in their life from working with me. And quite often my clients will say afterwards, you really should charge more. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but you've been through the coaching and you understand the value and how cheap I am for what you're getting. But, other people, they might not fully understand something intangible like coaching in the way that they might if they were buying a new car or, I don't know, spending money on ballet classes or something.
That is so funny. You brought me to my teen, when I was 18 and my teen years. And I'm like, sometimes I feel like I had more money for myself, right? Because these days I have 2 kids, a wife, a house. And at that time I was living with my parents, and it's just, fun money, and I...
Yes. Oh,
right?
fun money. Bring it.
That's hilarious. Okay. Yeah, that is so true.
That's a great way to put it, Pedro. Fun money is true, though. Yeah, no liabilities, loads of freedom. And yeah, what should we buy today? Smoothies, toy cars.
Oh, that's just for partying and all that. And you're like, yeah, I'm gonna buy a skateboard, whatever. Today I'm like, what? Not really how it works, Pedro. Take it easy. We have bills, right?
Exactly.
Oh my God, that is so true. Now, what I want to know is like future, right? I mean, what's, how did that entails for you? Now, I'm curious about like where you're taking all this, right? At the end of the day, looking ahead, where do you see the business going? Are you thinking about scaling, hiring, or is there a next step you're excited about, Melanie?
Wow, the future. It's such a loaded, exciting and terrifying word, Pedro, all at once. I mean, I guess I'd start with saying I'm surprised by like where I am today, and that, when you start, if you're anything like me, you kind of think, gosh, I'd be surprised if I could earn any money from this, because you're not an expert yet. So I've been pleasantly surprised by how well I've done just through kind of following my heart and being holistic with the sales and marketing. Now, as I said, I'm at the stage where I'm like, right, I want to get more structures in place because anyone who's in this field knows, income can be quite volatile, 1 month you
Mm.
might get X amount of clients, another month might be quieter. So although it's wonderful having freedom, the pain point is the stability that can rub up against that freedom value. So I'm at the stage where I'd like to almost not automate processes yet, but have more regular structures in that bring in more, I don't know, where I feel a bit more in control of the number of clients I'm getting a month. In terms of the future though, yeah, I'd like to I do corporate training as well. So corporate success masterclasses, whether resilience, some mindfulness masterclasses, mindset mastery, or helping people optimize their management skills, mental health first aid and stuff. I'd like to be doing more corporate training and also more corporate coaching. So I do like sort of drop-in surgeries, coaching surgeries where businesses can essentially buy me for a day and their employees can have, life or career coaching sessions with me. So I'd like to be doing more corporate stuff, coaching and training, and probably like building out more kind of sales funnels within my coaching business. So I have a more of a sense of if I do this, I on average get X number of clients a month. And that stabilizes my expectations a bit around the coaching side. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It
That's the
does.
short term. That's the short term approach. The longer term goals are sort of building out online masterclasses because obviously I've noticed some real pain points that help all clients that are hugely valuable. Yeah, and then you've obviously got the kind of passive income model there potentially built. Yeah, so that would be the kind of broad brush business model, I'd say.
Let me ask you this because I got really curious. Like you're from Dublin, right? You're in Ireland. This is like I didn't talk to way too many coaches in that specific place. And I've talked with people in the UK, but I want to hear from you, comparing, let's compare it to the US, right? Because I'm in Brazil and I have my own opinion about coaches in Brazil, but it's a different setup. Now, how would you frame Ireland for the coaching space? Do you feel like there is still some friction or people are more open to coaching? How would you frame that?
So far, I'd say they seem similar to obviously like the UK market. I mean, I think Ireland and the UK are quite closely aligned. They're basically more charismatic versions than the Brits. If we're generalizing wildly, and they probably drink quite a lot more. um, but I'd say they're quite similar in makeup. Dublin and London are both capital cities, similar pain points, very cosmopolitan, expensive places to live, easy to follow the corporate paths and then to find ourselves feeling slightly disillusioned. So I find in both places there's a need for the same service. Yeah, I'd say that there's not really a particular difference I've found between like UK and Irish clientele.
Interesting. Appreciate you sharing that. Now, I
Hmm.
want to tap into your experience for a second, right? Because people listening can really benefit from this. I mean, you've been in the game long enough to hear all kinds of business advice. You did mention some marketing tactics you're not a fan of. So I want to hear from you, right? Because there's a lot of noise out there, good and bad, towards business advice, So what's one piece of business advice you hear all the time that you think, I think that's overrated or maybe misunderstood?
Advice. I guess the current one in my mind is AI. AI saves time. I think a lot of coaches are now writing AI articles. I would caution people to be careful with that because one thing that's helped me to get to where I've got to today is speaking from the heart and writing from the heart. Cheesy as that sounds. Again, coaching unlike a product business. Some coaching organizations are like, you must not show personality. You must not. And I completely disagree. I think personality differentiates coaches, I think, from one another. I think it helps people identify who they're going to feel most energized around. Like my job is to facilitate people's growth, but my personality is a big part of my connection with clients. We have fun. If you don't want to have fun, don't work with me. Most of my clients are really fun. They're highly intelligent, but they're really freaking fun. And you know what? Fun is really great when you're quite stressed. You want to have a bit of a laugh. You want to bring a bit of lightness to deep existential, coaching sessions, really. So I would encourage people to be careful with the use of AI, particularly in marketing and articles and things, because I think it disconnects you from your true self and the heart that people feel. They feel that heart. They can feel when you're being genuine and authentic. And that's what truly inspires people. And actually, genuinity is one of the core tenets of successful counseling, actually being genuine. So I would say caution people against all, sort of roboticizing their marketing through AI because it disconnects you from that all important heart connection and that genuinity that you need to have to attract your tribe, really.
Yeah, and it shows, right? Sometimes we're browsing through social media and you're like, oh, thanks, Chat GPT. Not a problem, right? I think I'd love to use it for grammar, instead of just giving me the copy or something like that, because sometimes it shows like, oh, it's not X, it's not Z, it's just like not theory, just blah, blah, blah. And, and it's all over the place, and people are like posting nonstop, and you're like, okay, this is AI. I mean, I
Yeah,
can tell
exactly.
it. I'm not sure you, but I can tell when it's sometimes it's like special on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah, I get the sense a little bit. I think you can. A couple of times, my clients use ChatGPT to send messages to me, and it literally feels like I'm talking to a robot. I can feel the dislocation between that client and their energy, and I'm like, this isn't her. This is ChatGPT. I'm having a conversation with, and it's jarring. It's not authentic. It
Right,
dislocates connection.
right. Yeah, I think the video piece is good for that. I mean, at least we didn't get into that place that you cannot tell. Well, you never know, right? Now, on the other side, what's a piece of advice you wish more people actually took seriously as a business
Oh,
advice?
that's easy peasy, Pedro. Okay, you get so many people being like, "Oh my god, I just want to be a coach, quit my job, work from home, from kitchen table, design my day 9 to 5, ticks all the boxes." And to be horribly honest, it's horribly idealistic. It's one thing becoming good at what you do, but as we've said, you have to become good at sales and marketing. I was very lucky to work for that market leader because it taught me a lot about that. She was very good at sales and marketing, so it really plugged some gaps for me. But even now, I'm still a work in progress with sales and marketing. So, as I always say, it's like a beautiful chateau in France, with the most amazing champagne. The champagne may be amazing, but if you don't have the right road signs to that chateau, you don't know it's there. So you could have an amazing or be an amazing coach, but if you don't know how to market yourself with those road signs, the best will in the world, you're screwed, you know?
Mm.
So I think people can be naive about the business aspects of it. You've got to become good at those, and not just the sales and marketing, but the back end stuff like SEO and Google Analytics and all that stuff is quite a big part of running any business.
I want to dive in real quick in something you mentioned. You mentioned marketing and you mentioned holistic, right? How
Hmm.
would you define the holistic approach? Just so me and the
Yeah,
audience, we can understand
I like
exactly what
that.
you mean.
I mean, I guess I've never really had a strategy, really. I suppose that's what I mean by holistic. I've just sort of followed my nose and followed my heart. I've done what sort of felt right. And so far, it seems to have done the job quite a lot. I mean, there have been some strategic decisions, which I can tell you about in a minute. But what I mean by holistic is I write when I feel inspired, and I'll be like, right, I should write regularly. I should try and make that, be writing every day or every other day, really. But I'm not too fixed and stringent, and I must do this and I must do that. I've sort of been quite flowy in terms of exploring what's worked there and like developing a referral system. That wasn't really a strategic thing. I just noticed I was getting referrals, and then I kind of thought, right, I wonder if I can formalize this a little bit and incentivize clients to give me referrals to actually sort of mention that at the beginning of the process. For example, I've always loved writing by way of another holistic example. So I always, I had a blog initially when I was starting out as a coach because I loved writing. I noticed certain articles were resonating with people that were generally on the coaching themes of like happiness, fulfillment, all that sort of stuff. And so I was writing holistically, and then I became a bit more strategic in COVID. Like maybe I should start doing a bit of PR, and then so that was sort of like a strategic choice. And now I get approached more from like magazines and newspapers. So that's what I mean by holistic, if that makes sense.
No, it makes sense, and I love that. It's like writing at your own pace, right? And
Yeah.
considering the creativity as the main drive for it, instead of just pushing an agenda or pushing,
Mm,
consistency on posts. I got that. It's
exactly.
basically around that, right?
Absolutely. That's exactly it. It's all sort of heart led and yeah, sharing spontaneously when I feel inspired, because again, it comes back to authenticity. That's what inspires others
Mm.
versus having an agenda. I find that energy very at odds with the coaching energy.
Yeah, if you're just pushing it for the sake of it, there's no. It's gonna be hard to create connection, right? And it's hard to write properly when it's not fun. I think
Yes.
if you're
Yes.
not having that passion and you're just pushing to something like I'm just gonna put content out there, sometimes people are not gonna create a connection anyway. So they're just wasting time,
Yeah.
you know?
I love that, Pedro. Yeah. And fun is, if you read any of my social media posts, they're quite serious, but there's a lot of fun.
Hmm.
And I'm very authentic. Like, sometimes I'll swear in sessions with clients, for example, or in workshops. But, I'm being authentic. I mean, they're not really awful swear words, by the way.
You're
But I'm
allowed to
authentic.
swear here if you want to, okay? I'm just gonna put it
At all.
out there. If you're holding yourself back for the past 30 minutes, just go and do it.
Yeah, so I
Kinda,
agree. I mean,
right?
I think fun is actually one of my values. It's my favorite F word. If you're coming back to the swearing, it's my favorite F word. And it's a big part of my personality. So yeah, and it's a really lovely part of life is stressful, right? Adulting is bloody hard.
Mm.
Nice to be able to bring a bit of lightness and personality into an existential process. It's wonderful. It's a big part of the work that I do with people, and I find it adds huge value. I would say huge value to my clients. And selfishly, me, I like laughing with my clients too.
I love that. That's beautiful. Now, if someone listening wants to connect with you or follow your work, Melanie, where can people find you and connect with you?
Yeah, so I have a website, which is obviously www.melanie, Melanie-Pritchard, Pritchard.com. So that's my website. I'm quite active on Instagram in particular. That's Melanie Pritchard Coaching, and on LinkedIn, which is my name. As you can guess, I'm on TikTok as well. But yeah, I'd say LinkedIn, Instagram, and my website are the main places to find me.
Okay. Certain things I feel like I have to highlight based on the chat we had today. Like, I love how open you were about feeling an imposter, when you were being a freelancer, and then you had that shift, that pivot, and you started your own business. You're like, you know what? Is this really going to, work? And eventually it did, which I'm happy it did, since we're having this chat. Now, I would emphasize also the 3-part structure of your program, right? And I love the first one, which is the happiness and success. It's like peeling off an onion,
Yeah.
trying to get into the root cause of the decision making of why are you chasing that, or why do you want that? Because that's sometimes, at least the feeling I have, is like most people, they have surface level answers to really deep questions. Like, oh, I'm chasing the next paycheck, I'm chasing the next car, and they're not really playing by their own, rules. They're just seeing someone else, and they're like trying to copy that, and it sounds like a good idea,
Yeah,
And
that's true.
at the end of the day, and when you start peeling that off, like, do you really want to do this? I think that's powerful. That's super important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and also you're so open about figuring it out, right? It's not like you have all the answers. It's not like, oh, I'm here in this pedestal, I'm preaching. No, it's like,
No, I
yeah,
hate
I'm
that.
here. Yeah, yeah, I can tell. And like you're true to yourself. You're like so vulnerable, and I feel like that's so powerful and so easy to create a connection with someone like that. The reality check for people looking to be a coach and thinking it's just, oh, that's easy peasy. Work from home. I'm just gonna talk with people eventually. No, there's a whole business development that people are not aware of it, like in the
So, yeah.
backstage, and not that easy, right?
No,
And last but not least, Melanie, I would say having fun, right? I think, oh my God, that's such a
no,
great reminder. Not that you're gonna just have fun, but
not at
allow
all.
yourself to have some.
Yes, absolutely.
This is my long-winded way of saying that I appreciate what you do, Melanie. I appreciate you being here and sharing so openly today, okay? It was great having you on.
It was wonderful to be here, Pedro. I really enjoyed it.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This podcast was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, or even $100,000 weeks, all without burning out and making sure that you're making the impact and having the life that you want. To learn more about our community and how we can help you, visit joinpurplecircle.com.